All right, Mark and Adrian, are you guys ready?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Ted Harris. I'm with the Pennsylvania Petroleum Association. I'd like to welcome you to our monthly webinar series. This normally takes place the first Tuesday of each month, but due to the Labor Day holiday, it is the second Tuesday here in September. So thank you for joining us. Before we get started, I'd like to encourage you to ask questions during the webinar, and you will be able to do this through the question feature and GoToWebinar. You're going to be on mute the entire time, but you can type in your question. And then at the end of the webinar, I will ask your question back to Mark and Adrian, and I'm sure they will be able to answer your question. If for some reason we can't do that or we run out of time, I will connect you after the fact to make sure that your question is answered. At this point, I would like to introduce our presenters. We have Mark Stillman with the Energy Edge Advisory Group, as well as Adrian Ackerley with the Energy Edge Advisory Group. Mark and Adrian will be covering why you need to rethink will-call and COD, using e-commerce to deliver repeat gallons at better margins. And Mark and Adrian, I'll pass it all to you at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Ted, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Pennsylvania Petroleum Association does a great service for dealers and vendors in this space on the educational front. This is our second time participating, and we are really grateful for the opportunity to share some of our pearls of wisdom that we're learning about e-commerce and the emerging sort of changes within the will-call and COD market, which seems to be a boomerang for dealers. It comes and goes with time. Just a real quick clarification. The Energy Engine is an e-commerce software company. Adrian is a founder and owner. I am as well. But I also work and run a strategic consulting firm for fuel participants, mostly technology companies, called the Energy Edge Advisory Group. So with that said, we have spent a lot of time in this industry. I was not born and raised in this space, but came into the industry about 25 years ago and have made a home here. Really like it quite a lot. Adrian and our other partner, John, have been in the fuel business for just about as long, and also ran what remains the largest e-commerce fuel company ever to be in existence, of around 80,000 active customers at the peak in the mid-2000s. So as a group, we know the industry very well. We are proud members of the community and have probably more experience than most in terms of this e-commerce concept. So today we're going to talk about what we dub the will-call challenge. It's a very interesting topic. The reason I know that is that we do a lot of webinars as a company. We do a lot of presentations. I speak a lot at industry events and association meetings, do a lot of published articles and whatnot. And we tend to attract really big crowds for this topic. And that's not because I happen to be the world's greatest speaker. It's simply because this is a topic that's top of mind, that the will-call and COD market is growing before our eyes, being driven by the same consumer forces that are changing myriad other industries. And dealers are interested in how to handle it. They're also conflicted because, as we know, the will-call and COD market is a little bit, I would use the word controversial, but it's not exactly a part of the market that we've all loved over time. But as this segment continues to grow and also change and evolve who they are, we'll talk about that in a minute. It really is essential to understand this part of the market. I know that phrase at the bottom, learning to serve will call, is essential to your success. Probably seems a little absurd, but I think if you were to open your mind a little bit this morning and hear what we have to say, then you might change your thoughts about this part of the market and what it means to serve it and why it would be so important to the success of the industry. So what we want to try to accomplish today, I'm going to throw a lot of information at you very quickly. We have a limited time this morning, and we're very respectful of your time. So if we get your questions today, great. If we don't, then you can funnel them through Ted or directly to us, and we can help fill in the blanks for you. I'm really going to talk about, number one, how to reduce the disruption of this part of the market. We know it's disruptive to your phone pool, to your operations. to your accounting and finance and the way that you capture money. There are ways that we can do that, typically by automating it, right? So the best way to handle a disruptive, exception-oriented part of any business is to automate it. So e-commerce, in essence, automates the entire Will-Call COD segment of your business. We know that there's more and more price shoppers out there. That's nothing new. That started happening in the mid to late 90s. But for a long time, we've really had trouble as a dealer community trying to make money in that price-oriented market, if we even wanted to go there at all. And then the last part of the presentation is something that we do because it's the most popular question we get. If we get pressed on anything, it's really what are your dealers doing? And it's not about us bragging or trying to sell you on the engine. It's more about, I think, other dealers being interested in what our customers or e-commerce fuel dealers are doing. Does it work? I get the concept, Mark, but what's happening at the pointy end of the spear? Are the results, as they say, is the juice worth the squeeze? And I think you'll see that in our case, it really is. So I like to start off my presentations with the same slide. My daughter, who's 14, this was kind of her idea. She likes to play around with my presentations. So in a galaxy far, far away, which is about a decade ago, if you think about the world we're living in now and then juxtapose it to the world of 2007 to 2009, Amazon was a bookstore, right, with a kind of a crummy coffee cafe in the back. They were dabbling in e-commerce, but it was still mainly books. iPhone had just been released. It's so weird that smartphones are ubiquitous in our society, from 5-year-olds to 105-year-olds. But that's really a very new phenomenon. That's a decade that we've had this technology in our hands. Facebook was competing with MySpace. Who the heck is MySpace? And we went to stores. Remember those days when it was kind of a cool thing to go to the mall and shop and do that, bricks and mortar, and we liked to touch and feel the clothes, and it was part of our sort of human experience. And the only way to engage businesses was the telephone. We spent a lot of time on the phone, working with people who provide us products and services. But wow, you talk about a revolution, really. In a decade, there's been this incredible shift, right? All of this stuff has been replaced by what I call the always connected, always on, all the time sort of person in our society. We are all it. I'm it. You're it. My kid is it. Your kids are it. Our grandfathers and grandmothers and everybody else is pretty much connected all the time. The interesting thing about that is it has completely changed sort of how we live in the context of time. And I don't want to turn into Einstein here, but, being always connected, using the internet and web for everything, texting instead of talking, has made us live in a world where time is the most valuable thing we have. So in order to create time, things need to be incredibly efficient. And that is why internet commerce has exploded, because it falls into a neat little box where we can get what we want done, buy what we want, engage the way we want in as little time as possible. So as a society and as consumers, we've moved from sort of a high friction environment of phone and mail to an always connected, every second is precious. Again, my daughter gets irritated if she has to do more than 3 clicks to buy a new skirt on Amazon. So we're kind of living that way. And that is affecting our industry, right? So how is it affecting our industry, and why are we talking about Will-Call? Because we know that most dealers have a love-hate, or what I call a hate-hate relationship with Will-Call and COD. I recently spoke at the Eastern Energy Expo in PA, and I asked for a raise of hands of how many people hated Will-Call and COD, and 99% of the room raised their hands. And I said, how many people have a fair amount of Will-Call and COD? And the same 99% of the people raised their hands. We know it's just a phenomenon in this industry. It's always been there. We're used to dealing with it. We have a certain mindset about it. But what we're asking you to do today, and then maybe going forward, is to sort of perhaps change that mindset a little bit. And this is where I put my disclaimer in, is that although we are in the e-commerce business, and yes, our product is geared towards the will-call and COD customer, we are not advocates or we are not promoting will-call and COD. I used to joke that when I presented or gotten sales engagements for the engine 5 years ago, there were more fist fights. And if anybody watched me speak at EEE 2 years ago, there literally almost was a fist fight because will call is a prickly topic, right? We get it. We're not promoting will call. We're simply providing tools and ideas about how to manage this market, which is growing and changing. We're not out to try to turn the industry into a will call e-commerce business that wouldn't serve anyone. So we have this new fuel customer, this will call customer that has been transformed. I call it the transformation because the revolution is over, right? We know that that's happened. The cool thing about this digital revolution is that if you look at technological revolutions that have happened in the past, obviously there's the industrial revolution, which really favored the producers and the manufacturers. There was the computer revolution of the 80s and 90s, the Microsoft, everybody gets a computer, but it still tied us to our house. It was still something that you had to use at home. This digital transformation of everything being on a smartphone, anytime, anywhere, is really the first revolution in human history, certainly modern human history, that has landed right at the doorstep of everyday consumers. It is improving our lives in a direct way, not an indirect way. That's very empowering, right? So this revolution is different because it has really tapped into our natural desire to be self-determined, to make our own decisions, to have power, to control our relationships with people that we do business with, to engage more, to participate more. And that's a really new fuel customer for us, right? So the typical traditional fuel customer on automatic delivery is not an engaged customer. We do our work for them. We have a forecasting system. We send them bills in the mail. They call us when they have questions or they want to sign up for a price plan or a budget. Those days are kind of over, right? That customer still exists, but more and more customers want to engage and participate. We're not the only industry who's really sort of being challenged with this. This highly engaged, self-determined consumer that we don't recognize is really sort of giving fits to any industry, whether it's car insurance, cars, lollipops, retailers, you name it. Everybody is struggling to sort of catch up, keep pace, and satisfy this customer. So this fuel customer that we call the customer you don't know, is behaving in a very unusual way, right? Their demands are extreme. Their demands about price are extreme. Their tolerance for your missteps are almost unreasonable. And it's not because your competitors are doing a great job, well, maybe in some cases, but for the most part, it's because these consumers are bringing to the fuel business the experiences that they have elsewhere. And because there are so many retailers in online e-commerce like Amazon that are providing an unbelievable, seamless, frictionless, easy, amazing, fun experience, that consumers now are judging you by that. That's a big change. Millennials especially, who are really beefing up this will-call COD business, they're coming to you wondering why you're not like Lyft or Amazon or Grubhub, right? And it's hard because as fuel dealers, we're used to a certain engagement model. We're used to basically our customers being trained by us or other dealers, and now they're not anymore, right? They're being trained somewhere else. But the big push here, obviously, and especially in a commodity market like ours, you can't escape it, is that they're demanding lower prices, which is why you've seen margin erosions across the board in heating oil and even in propane, where consumers are pushing down that equilibrium price. And they're telling you that it's because I want the low price. I just don't want all the bells and whistles, right? The heating oil and fuel business and the propane business are great, and I get the full service value proposition, but I just want the fuel. And I don't need all the other stuff. And you know what? My skin in the game is I'll do all the work. If you give me a place online to do the work, I'll do the work. I will perform self-service in exchange for low prices. This is all brand new. The fuel industry doesn't quite know what to do with this. In some respects, it sort of flies in the face of our historical values, right? Which is this real tactile environment, knowing everybody, sitting at their kitchen table, coming into the office. It feels really, really incongruous with that, but we have to get used to it. This is the reality. Even if you're in the automatic fuel only business, this reality of this new consumer is something you have to deal with and have to accept. It's not going to go away. You can't will it away. It's here to stay. It's only going to accelerate. Look at the research that NORA has done and various state associations have done. Fuel consumers are increasingly frustrated with the way that we do business with them, whether that's automatic or will call, and we all need to sort of wake up and challenge ourselves to get in sync. So all of these factors that I sort of crapped on about there are driving an increase in will call and COD. It's just a fact. There's more and more people choosing this way of doing business with you over automatic. I'm not saying that there's going to be the death of automatic delivery, because there won't be. But you are definitely seeing an increase in will call and COD. That is not me saying that. Talk to dealers, you know that themselves are, we have hundreds of customers and everybody tells us the same thing. And again, it's this self-service mindset. Will call and COD aligned really nicely with self-service, right? An engaged self-service digital relationship that consumers want. It fits neatly in the will call and COD business. This may be an editorial slide, but I think it's a really important slide for people who are still conflicted about what it means to be in the fuel business in 2019 with the advent of e-commerce and the internet and this sort of changing consumer. We are not inoculated from the internet. I'm sorry to break the news to everybody, but there's nothing special about what we do. I saw a presentation last year by someone who I respect and admire a lot, who was trying to say that we are not going to be affected by the internet as an industry. And until Amazon can deliver fuel in the mail, then we're not worried about e-commerce. That is a perilously risky mindset. The internet has reshaped the world. Consumers have reshaped businesses that felt like they were inoculated from the internet. I don't need to remind you about companies like Blockbuster, who scoffed at web-based movie rentals. There's nothing that we are doing that can't be done on the internet. Consumers are consumers. They don't like to be told what to do. They don't like to be told when to do it or how to do it. So this whole concept of web-based commerce has changed every industry, and it's changing ours. We are not going to be safe from it. I also saw a presentation a few years ago in which the presenter was talking about the oil and propane business being the last milkman. That we were the last, we would never ever be cast into a group where there was this sort of sterile mechanical relationship, that we were always going to be people at the front step in this intimate relationship with our customers. That is just, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. It's not happening now, and it hasn't happened. And for the record, I don't want to be the last milkman. We know how that story ended. So as I jump into some of the meat of this here, just not for 45 minutes, it'll be less than that now. Let's just change the label of will call. Maybe that's the best way to do it, right? Labels mean everything. Back in the day, mail order meant that you couldn't afford to go to the store. Now mail order is the coolest thing ever. It's called online shopping. No frills airlines, nobody wanted to fly on them because nobody got, God forbid, we don't get a meal, we have to pay for our snacks, or I don't get a seat assignment. Now Southwest is one of the most popular airlines in the world, and people are really proud of how they save money and get a great experience on that airline. So will call and COD, let's just call it self-service. Let's just change the label. We call it on demand in our world because that's kind of an e-commerce term. But really all it is that a consumer wants to take care of their own relationship. They want to watch that tank, and in exchange, they want a lower price. So we know, certainly anecdotally, we know empirically that will call and COD are changed, that this self-service customer is different. Why? And why are they forever changed? And why do you need to know what's going on here? And maybe a lot of you do, but maybe sometimes you need a reminder. Very often I give this presentation and people send me an email after and say, you know what? I know that instinctively, Stillman, but it's good to hear it. It's good to hear some facts about it. It helps me to sort of help my team understand why things are changing. First of all, there's far too many of them. In some markets, the total will-call consumption is around 50%. In some markets, it's much lower. I don't mean your customer base. I mean the total consumption in your market. And some markets are higher. If you look at Maine, it's very likely above 50%. If you look at outside the Boston metro, I have dealers tell me that they believe it's closer to 60. In Pennsylvania, in areas, most of you folks obviously are in Pennsylvania, it's probably in the 40, 50% range. It depends on where it is. So there's just too many. I don't know of any industry that can essentially ignore half of the market, even if it's 30% in your area. It's too big to ignore. You know, a lot of dealers for a long time had this mindset, we only want full service customers. The will-call customers can go elsewhere. Well, I don't know if that's such a smart strategy, given that there's not a whole heck of a lot of new fuel customers coming into the industry. The demand has certainly dropped significantly. I'm not trying to be a doomsday guy because I don't like those kind of presentations, but we can't ignore the fact that heating oil and propane have suffered demand erosion that probably won't come back, certainly with the regulatory pressures that we're all facing now, every state. So if volume and margin and turning gallons is the business that you're in, then ignoring half the market is not really a smart idea. Embracing them might be a smarter idea. So internet shopping, this is an Amazon term. So all of us buy online. I can't imagine anybody on the phone today hasn't bought something online. And you've accepted what Amazon calls a low-end relationship. Low-end relationships are cool. Taking a college class online, doing your taxes online, getting your car insurance online, never talking to anybody, using all email and text. That's a low-end relationship, right? But they're cool. People thrive on these low-end relationships. They're proud of them. They're proud of the fact that they got a really great deal from a really great company with a really great brand. And because they've taken on the service aspect themselves, then there's a sort of a badge of honor with that. We're all quite proud of that. Demographically, Will-Call and COD have changed. You really need to forget your old view of who they are, right? So if I say the term Will-Call or COD and you close your eyes, you kind of think the same thing I think, right? There's this sort of low rent customer with a 420 FICO score that wants 100 gallons and claims they're going to wait for you at the gate with cash, and there's like a pit bull there and they're not home. And that sort of is one of the views. The other view is a senior citizen who took a black Sharpie and put a line on their fuel tank gauge. And even though that line is at the 3/8 mark, they want to call you up the minute it hits it and tell you to come out as soon as possible because they're almost out of oil and they take 130 gallons. That is not who they are anymore. They are mainstream fuel customers. These are doctors, school teachers, firefighters, policemen, you name it. They're your regular full service customers who are choosing to buy from you in a different way. A perfect example is right here for me at home. I live in the mountains of central New Hampshire, in a rural area. I was telling Ted this morning that it was in the high 30s for the third time this year. 2 of those days were in August. So we know how to do winter up here. And although work for an e-commerce company, I am a dyed-in-the-wool automatic customer. I travel a lot. I want automatic. I want a price plan. And whatever you're selling, I'm buying, and I deal with a very proud, reputable, local, independent company here. Some of you may even know them. And I love it. They love me and I love them. My neighbors are retired pediatricians from Boston, and we're good friends. And these people make a sport out of buying oil and propane. We both use both fuels. And they go online and they want to shop around. They want to get to know this company. They want to get a price quote. They want to check out the reviews. It's a sport. They are not the typical COD will-call customer, but they are now. So it's important to sort of draw out these distinctions and change your view and perspective on who these customers are. This last part is really, really, really critical, and we'll talk about this more in a minute. Will-Call and COD customers have become really loyal. They used to be one-hit wonders, and I'm sure that there's still a whole ton of those out there. But what we're finding, because we've been in business for a long time, we have data on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of deliveries and hundreds of thousands of consumers, we can track their behavior. And these customers are amazingly loyal, which sort of goes to the whole internet shopping thing. Amazon, 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 Amazon. It's brand loyalty, right? So because you're a full service customer and you're proud and you have a very reputable, very well-known brand, a Will-Call COD sort of on-demand customer still appreciates that. They might want to buy from you differently. They might want a lower price, and they might not want all the bells and whistles. But they appreciate what you have to offer. They appreciate the security and comfort of your brand, and they will reward you with loyalty at rates that will shock you. All that being said, I sat in your chair. I worked for some of the biggest MLPs in this industry when I first came in, sort of by accident in the mid-90s. And Will-Call and COD then, and Will-Call and COD now, regardless of who they are disruptive. They give us headaches, and they can kill margins if you don't service them properly. That's as honest as I can be. So what's the solution? The solution really is e-commerce. You have to reinvent Will-Call and COD. The biggest, probably the mistake that we continue to make in this industry as dealers is trying to take this Will-Call and COD business, trying to take a consumer who's looking for less of the value proposition, less stuff from you, just the fuel part maybe, or maybe a fuel and an additive. We're trying to run them through our traditional automatic business, phones, paper bills, maybe even giving them terms for credit. It's amazing, right? And then we wonder why we can't make money. The time it takes to process a Will-Call and COD order, and certainly if you're doing actual COD and handling cash and checks in the field, is immensely inefficient, right? So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you try to run this customer through your full service model, then you are not going to make money. So you kind of have to reposition your business a little bit in order to make money selling these kind of gallons. Now, first of all, number one is that it's okay to have a discount brand. You don't need to hide it. You don't need to pretend you're not in the business, wink, wink, and then show up with your truck with some pretend name that you have. That was necessary for a while. Consumers have what Google calls, excuse my language here, bullshit radar. They know when they're being duped, right? It's okay that you have a discount company. It's okay that some of your customers want a premium service, right? So I like to go to Nordstrom. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my guilty pleasure. I like the piano playing. I love the restaurant in there. I like to buy some clothes for my family. But there's lots of folks who want to go to Nordstrom Rack, and there are other folks who want to go to Nordstrom Rack online. They don't care about the piano and the cappuccino, right? So all markets have that. Car companies have that, right? You can go buy a $18,000 Chevy, or you can go buy a $100,000 Suburban. And each person is equally proud of that car, and each person proudly, sort of wears the Chevy brand. So we are not different. The discount versus premium service, that's a thing of the past. You can't value judge your customers. They're equally valuable. Just because one wants a discount for less value add from you doesn't make them any less value to your business. So that's an important distinction for all of us to make. It's kind of thing we need to let go. That just doesn't exist anymore. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And so there's this sort of transient self-service customer. So discount customers are transient until they land somewhere. And then you can get a delivery or two from them and they move on. That's great. You can make money, or they might stick around. But e-commerce does fulfill a need, right? It's a way for you to capture with really good SEO and website technology, this transient customer searching the web on their phone for heating oil in their market, e-commerce will grab them, it will engage them, it will communicate with them. You don't have to do it. It can do everything that they need to do to take their journey with you, and be happy or not be happy and move on. It's okay because it's efficient and you're making money at it. It's not such a bad thing if they're transient. The idea is to try to make them not transient, obviously, by doing things that allow you to grow your business. This customer, because there's so many, if you go after it and you really actively pursue this business and you want to grow that part of your business in an innovative way, it is there. We see unbelievable exponential growth when a company decides, even a full service only company decides they want to get into the e-commerce will-call business. You can drive immense amounts of growth. I'll show you those numbers in a second here. You can automate everything, right? That's the idea. So e-commerce automates everything. And because it automates everything, you never take a phone call. I call it CBD, cash before delivery. You're getting paid before your truck rolls. Your fulfillment costs are greatly reduced. So one of the ways that e-commerce causes a bump up in margin, the way that e-commerce allows you to make money in a part of your business that's been difficult to make money in the past, is it automates and reduces fulfillment costs while delivering a great customer experience that they're used to getting elsewhere. Excuse me one sec. I was ranting there. I need some coffee. So the power of e-commerce really is what is a holy grail, right? We want to be touchless from order to cash. Any business that can be touchless from order to cash is going to create more margin. It's going to create an environment where a customer is satisfied because they don't have to pick up the telephone. Modern consumers hate the telephone. I just saw some research that said 80% of consumers will avoid the phone at all costs unless there is A, an emergency, or B, the online system broke down. So this touchless stuff is good for you, but it's good for customers. E-commerce puts all those engagement tools in one place. And when I say engagement tools, think about it, right? Your online e-commerce system has to be able to go find customers using SEO and website tools. It has to be able to communicate, welcome, hey, thanks for stopping by. Hey, get a price quote, get a newsletter, register now. Here's an incentive for first-time customers. I get a price quote. A couple minutes later, I get a text or an email saying, thanks for taking a price quote, but you didn't get an order. Come back within 3 days and we'll give you 5 cents off a gallon. Thank you for your order. Here's your credit card charge. Here's the day your order is coming. It's been 20 days since your last order. Do you need fuel again? Unattended, automated, no phone calls, nothing. You do nothing. You set it up once and it sits there and it does all that for you. That really is the most important part of e-commerce. Is from the minute that customer is exposed to your brand to the minute they have their oil or propane safely in their tank, you've never engaged them once by telephone. All being done automatically, including the emails that go out and thank them and confirm orders. That drives down costs. It allows you, if you have a will-call or COD business now, we have many customers who have moved that business online, right? Really, really smart idea. You can capture these new gallons with very low acquisition costs. We're going to talk about that in a second, but we know that customer acquisition costs continue to go up to that $500 to $700 range for full service customer with sales costs and incentives. And then cross-selling. This is a myth about e-commerce. If I open up a discount e-commerce business, Mark, then all of my full service customers will leave and go to that, and they'll cannibalize my main business. If your customers were that vulnerable, they would have left already because there's probably 20 dealers in your area that would be happy to deliver them fuel at 20 cents a gallon less or 30. What we actually see is the opposite, is that we encourage our online e-commerce customers to cross-sell. You're getting an email address. That's the beauty of e-commerce. You're capturing countless thousands and thousands of email addresses over time. cross-sell to them, talk about the virtues of full service. Some of our customers on their e-commerce site say, if you want budgets, price protection, blah, click here, and it links them back to their full service site. So we're seeing growth of the 2 to 3% of their full service growth is coming from their e-commerce business, converting these customers to full service. But these discounts require automation. If you're going to be in the discount business, if you're going to serve this consumer, if you're going to have this touchless order to cash, touchless means automated. You cannot do that on the telephone. Will-call orders are the second most expensive phone call that comes into your office. When I'm doing this publicly, I ask people to tell me the most expensive phone call. The most expensive phone calls are budget and price plans. But at $6 to $10 between the phone calls, multiple phone calls running around, the driver has to wait for money. It's even more expensive. But if a customer is willing to help themselves in an automated e-commerce system, then all you have to do is deliver the fuel. And again, you get paid before the truck rolls. E-commerce systems get that credit card. They have price tiers by volume. The customer orders, the truck goes out, you've already been paid. And the only correction that's made is how many gallons did they take? And do we have to credit their card or do we have to charge them a little bit more? So it's a really, really important tool. It's a really important automation tool. It's what customers want, right? So we all want consumer technology. We want apps. We want really good e-commerce sites. We want to do things ourselves. And e-commerce is the way to do that. It's the ultimate solution. It's different than a portal. I want to make sure that people understand that we have great relationships with Gary at Deswin and Tim and the folks at MPX and Silverline. A lot of our customers, in fact, the vast majority of our customers are full service customers with an e-commerce will-call business who run a portal for their existing customers and use e-commerce for this sort of transient will-call business. It's okay because portals are really designed for existing customers. They don't do the level of communication and marketing that e-commerce does. They don't have the same feel of e-commerce that consumers get elsewhere. It's more of the same feel they get when they pay their bill at the doctor office. It's really great for existing customers. It's not so great for the transient business. So we love portals, but e-commerce is very different than a portal, and most companies will run both, and it's not expensive to do that. Again,
hey, Mark, I just wanted you to pay attention to the time. We're running a little bit over here.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna burn through this here. This is more probably gratuitous and also editorial, but it's just something that we like to suggest. There's a lot of these aggregation sites out there. We know what they are. They're sort of, cheapsomething.com, and they basically turn you into a trucking company. They're tempting, and a lot of you use them, but the margins on those sites are getting really, really thin. It's turning into a reverse auction. You've lost control of the equity of that customer. Your truck is pulling in the driveway, so your brand is attached, but you have no control over that relationship. And in some markets, those auction rates are 20, 23 cents a gallon. I just don't know how you make money. The reason we built the engine was we wanted to give you the same tool and power of e-commerce, because that's what these guys and girls are doing, but it's your brand, your rules. So all that being said, new consumer, new tool, new way of doing business, modernizing the model for fuel dealers. What is the real world impact? Like I said, we have years and years of data. John, who's not on the phone today, and Adrian, who is on the phone today, exhaustively capture this data. And we want to report about how we're doing. We just went through our year-end reporting for last season and presented to our customers. Always surprising. We're even often surprised. The context of this is that, e-commerce and what you're about to see for results might look really amazing. In some cases, we get called out. No way that is happening. It is. But it's a new way of doing business. It's an innovative. It's something that we're learning about as an industry. And there's something that John likes to talk about called the arrogance of success, which makes us sort of feel as an industry, and this happens. I've seen it. You know it. is that, what we've done, we're really proud of. We're really proud of our grandfathers and grandmothers did and moms and dads did. Or in the cases of one of our customers, been in business since 1854, pre-Civil War, yeah, they should have some arrogance to success, but we're living in a different world. What we did before is not going to work anymore. I think that's a lesson for the industry that a lot of folks are trying to impart, and even a lot of dealers who are forward thinking are trying to impart. We've got to get past this arrogance of success. So new success is built around sort of e-commerce using the web to engage customers. It's going to change your business. You are going to grow for sure with e-commerce. We have very few, if any, outright failures. It's almost impossible. Our network average of customers, which is dozens and dozens, some of them one truck, some of them the largest publicly traded companies in the industry, are adding on average about 450 customers a year. Our best practices group, which is the top 10%, Adrian, of customers?
Correct.
Okay, is 1271. That's a lot of new customers. Gallons, pretty close to 500,000 across the network. The best practices group is around 1.5 million gallons. This is incremental business above the business you had when you started. And we have companies doing in excess of 5 and 7 million gallons through e-commerce. We have companies that started off with 5 or 6 trucks in the full service business, whose e-commerce business now has grown to as large or even larger than their full service business. So there's a lot of volume out there. Volume is king. We know that. Growth is king. It's not a one-hit wonder. Our average gallon growth rate in the last 5 years is 25% year over year repeated. That means a significant growth rate, right? This is going to dwarf the growth rate of your full service business. And again, not casting aspersions on full service, but most dealers are thrilled if they can have a zero net attrition. They bring in 500, they lose 500. This is repeated 25% a year growth. It's pretty impressive to watch this happen when customers call you up bragging about their numbers, using slogans like no gallon left behind, because this is incremental. You have your fleet, you have your business. Your costs are not going up. You're just growing your gallons. And most dealers have plenty of capacity in their fleet to accommodate this business. What they don't have is capacity in the office to process it all. But if you automate that and you fill the capacity of your truck, this really is the gift that keeps on giving. But there is a lot more. This is back to the loyalty thing. I want to end on a really high note here. Will-Call customers are loyal with e-commerce. They're not as loyal with the phone because it's aggravating and they don't like it. You don't like them. They don't really get treated the best. But in e-commerce, we're seeing loyalty rates get very close to full service loyalty rates. We're at around 63% as an average in the network, 72% in the best practices group. Some people are up around 80%, but full service loyalty rates, depending on who you talk to, whether it's gray or dealers or whoever, is somewhere around 80 to 85. So you're really close. These people are becoming just as loyal as your full service customers. The most important thing, though, is how much of their consumption are you capturing? That's what dealers want to know. We get that question a lot. If you look at your average consumption for a customer, how much of that are you getting using e-commerce? If these will-call customers are so loyal, Mark, then I would know by their annual consumption what percentage of that we're capturing. 75 to 90%. That's a lot of their fuel. In our best practices group, that's essentially all of it if you weather correct that. So they're loyal and they're buying from our customers with e-commerce repeatedly. It's because it's kind of the old adage, right? Which is they come for the price of e-commerce, but they stay for the convenience. It's so easy for customers to use e-commerce and to order fuel from you simply by clicking it on their phone. That becomes more important than the price, which is why most of our e-commerce dealers who do a good job can get good margins, not their full service margins, but really solid margins.
Hey, Mark, if I could interrupt here just for a second. You think about the customers today, just like what you've been saying. With e-commerce, they're getting the emails that are telling them when to order. They're getting the emails that are telling them that the order was successful or that the delivery was successful, and here's what was charged and here's what was credited back. It's all automated. That's what makes it so easy for a customer to say, you know what, I really like e-commerce, but also it's a 4-click order. So to come in, place your order, you're done with it, you get all your notifications. Why wouldn't you be loyal?
Exactly. It is. It's a convenience factor. Really important. Thank you. Customer acquisition costs, another really popular. I'm a numbers geek. I'm a finance guy by trade and education. We get a lot of questions about acquisition costs, online acquisition costs. We know that full service customers are running about $500 to $600 for a gain, all in. And if Nora is right, and 50% of them are gone in 18 months, it's really tough to even make that money back. But either way, it's an expensive way to grow. If you even can. Recent transactions, actually, we're hearing a lot from the folks who are in the M&A acquisition business who are putting a per customer rate in these deals. The 50/50 number is a traditional sort of automatic business with some will-call component, up almost $700 a head to buy a company. The valuations would be done very differently at, 68 to $90 for e-commerce. Obviously, that's extremely low. You're acquiring these customers at a fraction of the cost. But all this is pointing to making money. It's not just about the margin. You can't just say, well, I don't want to do it for 50 cents a gallon. But if your fulfillment costs are lower, your acquisition costs are lower, your delivery costs are lower, you are making money. You have to look closer at the net margin of e-commerce gallons and will-call gallons. Operational improvements, we know we want to take the pressure off your call centers. They're already stressed enough. Anything that makes people stop calling will help your CSR team. These will-call COD calls are complicated and running around talking to dispatchers. Get rid of the calls. Our average drop in our network is around 176. We have many dealers who are at 200. It's a huge improvement. It's one of those, it's kind of the white whale of the industry, right? How do we get our average drop? Again, if I was in front of the room, I would ask you what the industry average is. Proven industry average for automatic delivery is 139. I'm not saying that you're not higher than that, but that is the industry average for automatic. Talk about leaving money on the table. So e-commerce does bump up your average drop size, which again, we're talking here about ways to improve margin, net margin, and for you to make money at this. The myth is that these customers are low value and that you can't make money. And we're here to tell you that they are not low value. They're you and me choosing a different way to do business with you. And you can make great money because of the cost efficiencies and economies of e-commerce. The most important thing is they want you to have fun, right? This is a tough industry. I can't go to a conference without hearing somebody talk about the imminent demise of the fuel industry. The keynote at EEE terrified everybody and made them feel like the world was ending. This industry is hard enough. Whether you're in the heating oil or propane business, it's hard enough. But it's fun when you're adding new customers. It brings the fun back when you can create loyalty, when it's been really hard to retain customers. It feels like they lose you for a nickel. It's fun to do that at a fraction of the cost, right? It sort of puts some zeal and energy back in our customers and people doing this because it's new, it's innovative, it's fun, it feels on the cutting edge, it feels like you're aligned with customers. You're saving money, you're making money, you're growing, right? You're taking pressure off your operations, most notably the poor people on the telephone, right? And above all, you're making more money with way less stress. And isn't that really what we're all in the business to be doing? So while it's easy to get lost in the facts, I think the great thing about e-commerce is it gives something new to inspire you, to inspire your team, to inspire your customers, to go after a new part of the market, to be an innovative retailer in your space. So with that, Ted, I will turn it back over to you, and we'll call it a day.
Mark, thank you very much. I do want to do a quick reminder for anyone, if you do have a question, you can type it through the question feature and go to webinar, and we will moderate it right now. One of the questions that did come in was, does the energy engine work for propane?
Yes, that's a great point. Actually, if you saw the page of notes next to me here, I have a couple little things that says propane. Yes. It is obviously great for heating oil, but we have a separate module for propane. And I'm not selling the engine, but e-commerce needs a separate module for propane because of the gas check, because of all the safety concerns that the tank indemnity and who owns it and who doesn't. We have a module for propane. We have a lot of customers who are hybrid, and we also have pure propane customers who use the propane module. It handles all of the safety concerns. It is important to note that e-commerce for a brand new propane customer where you do not own the tank, maybe it's customer owned, it does require human intervention. There is a phone call, obviously, that has to be made. There is a gas check that has to be made. So we automate as much of it as we can, but once the customer is established, then it is back to the 4-click process again.
Excellent. You were talking about some of your standard results for customers from a growth perspective. What's from a cost? What's a potential company looking at to get those type of results? 500,000 gallons in regards to growth on an annual basis.
It's a good question. We get that a lot because they know that this is a marketing play. The engine, again, my apologies. The e-commerce system is really a tool. It's like the best hammer in my hand is useless. And the best hammer in the hands of a skilled craftsman, they can build a house, right? It's a marketing play. So the engine or e-commerce systems are incredibly good and have the right tools. But at the end of the day, if you can't get traffic to that site, then it just sits there and looks really pretty. So the major investment companies, so it's a subscription base. We're very inexpensive with a very low barrier to become a customer, but you do have to spend money on marketing. And our customers, on average, who are producing those results, spend in season, I'm going to make the distinction, in season, around $1,500 to $2,000 a month on marketing, whether that's pay-per-click or AdWords or other Facebook or whatever else they're doing. But that's how much they're spending in season on average. Some spend a lot more and they're doing $5 million. Some spend a lot less and they're doing $100,000. But that $1,500 to $2,000 number in season is a pretty safe bet.
Excellent. Don't have any other questions here at the moment. So with that being said, we'll give it a couple more seconds. And your contact information is on the screen here. So if anyone would like to connect after the fact, please do so. But again, Mark, Adrian, I appreciate your time and your experience on this subject, and thank you for participating.
Thanks. Thank you, Ted. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.